Hello, sziasztok, Boci vagyok, üdv a Game csatornán. Folytatjuk a Little Orpheus című játékot. És kicsit lejjebb vettem a játék hangját, mert én bár rohadtul nem hallom, a videóban mégis majdhogy nem ugyanolyan hangos, mint én vagyok. Úgyhogy az első részben nem nagyon lehet minden szavamat jól hallani, úgyhogy ha eddig nem hallottam a játékot, akkor most abszolút vakon fogok, hát illetve süketen fogok játszani. De hát mindegy, nézzük az 5. részt. A főhősünk Iván elhagyott egy atombombát, azt hajkurásszuk már majdnem 2 órája. Legalábbis az előző rész valami 1 óra 40 perc volt. Gondolom most tenni egy kicsit azért lehet, hogy több lesz. Nem tudom, hogy hosszabbodnak-e a pályák. Hát akkor a sisak az ezt biztosítja, hogy kapunk levegőt, oké. Azt hittem valami fegyvert kapunk, vagy valami itemet, amit tudunk használni. Amúgy az előző részben a játékot egész szépen megúsztuk. Tehát ilyen megúszásra játszottunk. Ötödik rész. Itt jó nagyokat tudunk ugrani. Hát ez is ugyanolyan hosszú pálya lesz, mint az eddigiek, már így ugyanolyan távot kell megtenni, akkor az egy kicsit több időbe fog telni. A baj, hogy kurvára nem hallom, hogy mit mondanak. Megpróbálok feliratot bekapcsolni. Jó. Hát mondjuk nem föntre gondoltam, hogy oda teszed, de mindegy. Lent zajlik az élet, nem oda fönt.
General, you seem perplexed.
Perplexed? Perplexed is that the keys to my house are not where I left them. Perplexed is the fact my dog will not eat cheese.
Fura sárga villámú.
I am not perplexed.
Hogy így minket annyira nem akarnak megbaszni. Kicsit fura, hogy ráz a cucc a víz alatt. Csikóval. Az mi volt? Már az mondjuk kékkel rázkódott.
Unfortunate is losing one's car in a snowstorm. Unfortunate is booking opera tickets on your wife's birthday and getting the date wrong.
Oh, was she furious?
That is not the issue! Furious. However, now that is a good word.
I could speak with your wife. Would that help? I could always have a word with her if you like.
Úszunk a buborékban benne.
You could, but I suspect she would appreciate the gesture.
Jajajaj. Ha 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 ha! Ez hajszál jó. Jó. Remélem lesz még sok ilyen, ahol pont át kell manőverezni két szikrázó felület között. Ugye nem szakad le a híd a víz alatt is. Dehogy nem.
A kraken. A vast monster of the sea. A giant, humongous, many-armed electrical destroyer of ships and cities. Electrical? Electricity flowed along its horrible body, sparking and stunning all it touched, flowing like deadly rivers along its awful tentacles.
Kisikított. Ja, ő. Olyan kivételesen nőies volt a sikolya az előbb. Érdekes, hogy amilyen szinten megyünk egyre lejjebb és lejjebb a játékba, már nem igazán értem, hogy a föld belsejébe hova tudunk ennyire lejjebb menni, már minimum ki kellett volna jönnünk a másik oldalán a bolygónak. De hát ugye a méretarányokkal már az előző részben is voltak érdekes dolgok.
That seems unlikely even by your standards.
No, General, I only wished that were true. The mighty ship showed terrible scars. Signs of having been grappled and torn asunder by some...
Hát jó, megálltam, nem tudom miért jó az, hogyha...
Indeed strange and curious.
És hogy mit csinál a kék fény, ha elkap.
Might you almost be perplexed, perhaps?
Don't push your luck.
Jó. Lássam, hogy hol megyek, köszönöm. Föl. Jó, megvárjuk még el. Jó, köszönöm. Fölfele menjél? Fölfele, geci? Érdekes, eddig tudod kibaszott hosszan fölmenni ez a buborék, most már nem. Igen, vágom már egyszer, túl vagyunk ezen, haver. Minden funkciót a négyzetel, csak ebben a játékban nem kell ki... És most megvárja tényleg, amíg fél útig érek? Miért tűnt el az előbb? Na mindegy. Ki telepítette ezeket ide?
I was stationed at Sydney Ostrov some years ago. I am only too aware of how easy it is for the imagination to create monsters when one is exposed to lonely and dark places. My men required constant monitoring.
Much like my cousin Pavel.
He was also stationed at Ostrov?
No, he required constant monitoring. He was a devil for stealing eggs.
Az igen. Mekkora kincses láda az is. Milyen? Mi vagyunk törpék? Vagy mi a faszom van itt? Ó, Dios mio.
I was referring to the fear that something is lurking in the darkness. Something strange, brutish, and ill-intentioned.
Again, that sounds much like my cousin Pavel.
Na. Haver, köszönöm. Hoppá! Ja, jó, nem, így lesz jó. Hopp. Köszönöm. Na. Mitől lukat ki? És addig sem megy el, mint az előbb. Mi a fasz van ezekkel a buborékokkal? Jó, nem arra kell ugrani, hanem a másik irányba, ennyi a sztori. Hát ahhoz nem kéne tán hozzáérni. Nem tudom, medúza. Na, kapu a víz alatt. Zseniális. A víz alatti pálya, ez nem a kedvenc, megmondom őszintén, iszonyat belassította a játékot. Eddig sem volt épp a leggyorsabb, de most kifejezetten lassú lett. Legalább ha ugrálok, az illúziója megvan, hogy gyorsabban haladok. Az már medúza méret.
There was no doubt about it, and escape was all I could think about.
Naturally.
That and duty.
Duty?
Yes, General. After all, I had a bomb to recover from that villain Toll.
How clever of you to remember that.
Meg azért kicsit várom a sivatagos settinget. Hát jó van, ez azért hajszálja volt. Nem tudom, várom, hogy egy kicsit a Mad Max-es legyen. Már úgy sivatagos, ennyi. Konkrétan kezd valahogy, nem tudom, most, hogy lassabban haladunk, most érzem, hogy zsibbad a hüvelykujjam, hogy itt tartom az analógot. Hát, jó. Kicsit később kell elkezdeni, bár...
There was the issue of escape. Escape from a dreadful grasping creature that consumed all it could reach, dragging anything that wandered within its clutches to a miserable doom. A hoarder of useless trophies and stolen goods.
Once again, Tavares, I suspect you are pursuing a somewhat tortuous metaphor for capitalism, in the misguided hope of appealing to my political ideals.
Kis jumpscare a végére. Szerencsére gecire le van halkítva a játék, úgyhogy nem nagyon hallottam azt a hangeffektet, amivel párosították a megjelenését a Krakennek.
Like a mouse, General. A little mouse being toyed with by a terrible cat.
A rather wet mouse.
I was like a little underwater mouse.
Being stalked by a giant rubbery electrical cat with 8 tentacles.
Exactly, General.
Good, I'm glad we cleared that up. You may continue.
Ez most előtte megyek el, vagy az útjába kerülök? Jézusom. Nyugi, 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 nyugi. Jó. Hú. Az mi? Az a Kraken szeme? Föl, 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 föl! Miért? A feléig nem értünk el, miért kezdett el? De mindig ezeknél, ahol nyüstölni kell az X-et, mindig ezeknél csinálja. Jó, nézem, hogy még menjek egyenes följebb, vagy... Ezzel most kövök segítve. Jó, muszáj voltam elnézni erre is, mert miért ne? Nyomjad már neki, geci. Csináld már, bazd meg! Köszönöm. Érdekes, hogy ugyanaz a mechanika van, mint az előző pályákon. De érdekes módon ott nem basztam föl amennyire. Nyilván... Jó, ez szerintem ez ennyi. És hogy tovább? Vagy ott is van buborék? Szóval nyilván a setting teszi, hogy most hamarabb fölbasszom magam. Nem nagyon tetszik ez a pályarész. Jó, nyugi. Gyere, érkezz le. Megpróbálunk a közeppe felé beugrani. Benne vagyok amúgy a szikla textúrájába? Ja. Jó, jó, jó. Így, így, így. Jó. Úgy, né, köszönöm. Jó. Azaz, kap be. Menjél már föl, húzd már föl magad, geci, haladjunk ezzel a szarral.
Submarines. You didn't mention submarines before.
Didn't I? Why? No, non verne, General. Of course, submarines.
Jó, innentől elengedjük a méretarányos dolgokat, ez valami fasság lesz amúgy, biztos, hogy hazudja.
submarines, did you see names, numbers?
General, have you lost the submarine?
I am not at liberty to answer.
Jó, mert én egy darab tengeralattjárót nem látok,
General,
amúgy
losing
csak
one's car in a
aknákat.
snowstorm is unfortunate, as you say, but to lose a whole submarine, that could be considered careless.
Na, ott van egy submarine. Amúgy tényleg kicsit Mad Max-es, csak annyi különbség, hogy ugyanez a látkép víz nélkül volt ott, meg aknák nélkül, ennyi. De ugyanígy állt ki a tengeralattjáró, vagy hajó a homokból.
Well, that was painted on the hull, so I can only assume so.
Remélem ilyen víz alatti ugrabugra lesz, meg lassúság a tengeralattjáró belsejében is.
You somehow miraculously brought the remaining closed cycle engine online.
Hallod, ezredes csávó, vagy nem tudom ki vagy. Lőd már főbe, hazudik, mint a vízfolyás. Ne legyél balfasz.
That is not what happened at all. I did indeed make my way to the torpedo tubes, but for a very different purpose. After all, history has taught us that atomic power is not to be toyed with.
Much like tired, impatient generals, perhaps. Particularly the perplexed ones.
Indeed, General. Or like dogs that will eat no cheese.
Pillanat, töltök magamnak, aztán megyünk is. Ha valahogy elnézem, még úgyis ki kell verekedni magát a vízből. Jó, akkor vége a vizes résznek. Mivel levette a sapkát, gondolom. Négyzet. Kar. Kar. Miért jön befele a víz is amúgy? Menjél le már át, köszönöm. Mi kapott el? És kezdjük előről? És hogy jön ide egy szem mindenféle fej nélkül? Nincs más a szemen kívül, csak a szem. Mi történik? Ja, hogy ráz ez a szar, és ha közel kerül, akkor megbasz. Most kicsit itt is zavarnak az előtérbe helyezett tárgyak. Nem mindig látom tisztán, hogy merre van az arra. Mitől nyomódott meg a gomb? Jó. Olyan amúgy, mint egy szitkom, ilyen átlag 24-20 perces egy pálya.
All of these questions and more may or may not be answered in the next exciting episode of Little Orpheus!
Majd a végén megnézzük, hogy mi a faszt akar állandóan ránk sózni.
I was alive, General. Somehow, miraculously, I was alive. Some twist of fate, some hand of destiny, but I was alive. Strange as this new world was, I knew Toll must have come this way, and it was my task to find
Na, a nagyon hideg helyett a nagyon melegben vagyunk.
like this.
Jó, T-rex pipa. Víz alatt pipa, bálna pipa. Most vagyunk a sivatagba. Havas pipa. Hát a nagy kéz az még kérdés, hogy az mi a tököm lesz majd. Lemúria harangjai. Lemúria. Az összes föld belsejében levő várost érintjük? Agartha, Lemúria.
The sun beat down on me relentlessly.
Shambhala? Nem jön még, vagy már volt?
I was exhausted. Yet I could not stop. I had to go on. For 7 weeks I trudged across the desert. On the second day,
Please, comrade, if we may. I think we can skip the details, unless you consider them to be particularly relevant to the location of little Orpheus.
of course, General. We will simply omit the tale of the singing chasm, the oasis of mirrors, the sightings of Toll's Mieng aloft on their pterodactyls carrying parts of my
Most
crash
itt telnek a
to drill
napok,
over the
értem.
horizon to Lemuria.
Wait, the what?
Singing chasm?
Not that bit, the rocket drill.
Oh yes, General, the rocket drill. But what did Toll want with it? And why Lemuria?
Lemuria.
Lemuria, General.
I am not familiar with this Lemuria, comrade.
Well, that is because it does not exist, General. Or at least, so I thought.
Jó, kb. 2 héten átmentünk egy folyamba. Jó legyen egy. De jót tett egy kis alvás. El kéne érni, el kéne érni. Jó.
Those strange crystals seem to exert an extraordinary hold over the stone blocks and arches. When they hummed, the whole city remade itself. Whereas they were missing, clearly looted by some villainous thief, the city was fallen to ruin. It was like a vast musical instrument, vandalized, and yet still attempting to toot.
Vajon ezek között lesz olyan is, ami csak időszakosan fogja helyreállítani a köveket?
How?
Vagy a romokat? Értitek, hogy ilyen időre menős.
Engineers would be fascinated and baffled in equal measure. If the whole department hadn't been
Hopp, ez
arrested
szarügy.
for sedition last week, I would happily convey it to their skeptical ears.
Igen, kb. Erre gondoltam.
Really?
How poetic.
Lesz, igen, ez meg is válaszolta.
Fascinated and baffled in equal measure. If the whole department
Megvárjuk, míg
had been
visszaesik.
arrested for sedition last week, I would happily convey it to their skeptical ears.
Sedition, General? Really?
Ó.
It is unfortunate news indeed.
I am joking, comrade.
Ott van a dínom-dánom. Remélem a T-rex is elbattyog idáig. Aha, hogy a költő nem láttam, hogy van ott egy ilyen lény. Most persze nem googolt le, hogy észleljem. Igen, menjek vissza a ládához? Ja. Miért oda töltesz be, haver, hogyha... Na mindegy. Nem mostosonjál, bazd meg. Megint ez az osonós téma, mint az előző videóban. Elkezd osonni, amikor kurvára nem kéne. Ugye azért gyerekek, azt észlelem, hogy a játék előre haladtával minél inkább haladunk a játékkal, annál inkább fogy a türelem. Ez pedig azért van, mert némiképp monoton a cucc. Itt nem oson. Ott, ahol full felesleges, ott igen.
Oh yes, the Menk for here, all right. Which meant whatever dastardly scheme Toll had, it was to be enacted on these burning sands.
And you will explain this in due course, I imagine.
Eminently, General. What you need to know first is this. I have told you already how parts of the devices the enslaved Mienk were forced to wear came from the surface.
Radio parts and so on, yes, from what you have told me. Assuming there were plenty of lost ships in the ocean as you claim, for Toll to have dredged up what he needed to assemble them.
Aha, good. You are one step ahead of me, General.
I said assuming.
Of course, assuming. Now, as I gazed in awe at the buildings rising and falling around me, I realized that the other major component of those mind-controlling helmets was crystal. Toll had raided Lemuria for them. He knew the city. He knew the crystals could amplify vibrations and waves, and was using them to boost the signal of the radio parts to exert his control over the Menk. Which meant...
Hát így is át lehet menni a hídon. Vagy alatta. Ó, ez már bonyolítja.
Yes, imagine, General, what such amplification could achieve when fused to the finest atomic science our great Soviet civilization has produced.
Wait. I do not understand. You said Toll was planning on using the bomb to shatter the Earth's crust to return to the surface.
A tragic mistake, General. He had not recognized the extent of his mad ambitions.
Most pont jó helyeken osont, kivételesen. Az szép volt. Kösz, hogy így bízhatok benned, hogyha megnyomom az ugrást, akkor tényleg ugrasz.
The vast pictograms told of a history of wonders. They seem to suggest the Lemurians were travelers from another world, where a mysterious clock seemed to stand.
That is very mysterious. As mysterious as the location of little Orpheus, perhaps.
Ah, yes, of course, General. I am just getting to that.
Azt érzem, hogy el tud érni valahogy a fénye a másik Yetiódnak. Jó. Hoppá. Biztos nem véletlenül van ott ő is. Okay.
As I bravely explored that ancient city, a question was gnawing at my mind. What did it mean that the Lemurians had foreseen the coming of Tol? And who was the man from above that was celebrated as the savior of the Menkf? It was almost as if they could read the future in their crystals.
Akkor átértünk a városon, vagy csak még beljebb kerültünk vajon?
The bells of
Úgy
Lemuria
látom, átértünk.
tolled and tolled, a roaring symphony, a crescendo of peals that set the city dancing, each note causing the crystals to shimmer and cascade with light. But the sandstorm was no natural phenomenon, and the bells did not ring for celebration. Something was very wrong here.
Aside from the pterodactyls and the nymph and the dancing stones and the ancient magical prophecies and the crystals and now the giant bells, you mean?
If you don't
Quick time event közelít.
easily just quietly go home.
Don't think Chepucho will get you out of this one, comrade.
Remek. Az lenne mondjuk nagy szám, hogyha ezen átfűzné magát a pterodactylus. Lehet, hogy most leköptem a mikrofon, nem tudom. Az ilyen tűbefűzés lenne, értük, így szállna át. Ekkora lenne már. Nem csinálnak ilyen extrém dolgokat, csak... Jaj. Hát én mondjuk szerintem átfért volna fölöttem, ha elhasalok, de mindegy. Több harang is van, mi? Jó, szerintem a becsúszással nem jártam olyan messze az igazságtól. Talán a buckánál kell időzíteni. Ne, guggoljál, induljál el, bazd meg! Begugolt. Jó, a repedésekkel kell akkor játszunk. Hol vannak a repedések vajon? Jó, jó, jó. Lehet, hogy pont a buckáknál? Azt jelzik a buckák? Oda rohanunk egy repedéshez, megállunk a tetején. Jó, akkor a buckánál vannak a repedések. Jó.
I raced through those magical structures, a righteous fire in my heart. I was like the Brinya Nikic, prepared to strike at the dragon who threatened my homeland.
Your heroism is only surpassed by your modesty.
On the contrary, General, I chose the Brinya carefully. Like him, I am a simple peasant. It was fate that chose me to descend to the Earth's core.
Nem kéne a feliratot annyira nézzem, amikor így ugra-bugra van.
To descend to the Earth's core. But don't let that get in the way of your story.
Oh, well then, award General Polkovnik Kamanin the highest medal in the world.
Azt a mennyi harang van ott
I
Lemúriában.
cannot take credit for his wisdom in sending me.
Amire beértünk, visszalengedünk.
What was once a rocket drill ship, built to burrow into the earth, was now a mighty vessel, repurposed to blast off into the skies.
Jó. Nem vettem észre az akadályt.
There was no doubt the toll was headed for the strange world with its clock, although to what end I was yet to understand. But there was no time to consider, no time for questions.
Örülnék, ha látnám, hogy mi van előttem amúgy.
Toll was on the rocket. Little Orpheus was on the rocket. And wherever they were headed, I must head there too, to thwart his plans, recover my drill, and save the world!
Will our enthusiasm
Kimentünk a föld belsejében az űrbe. Jó, igen, bocsánat, mondtam, hogy elengedem. Engedem.
Does Nikolai Petrovich Kamenyan really need any more medals? What was the strange clock, and what could it all mean? All of these questions and more will be answered if you're extremely lucky in the next exciting episode of Little Orpheus.
Jó. Persze valahogy fura módon van levegő ugye az űrben. Nem mondom, elengedem, tényleg elengedem. Szia, Lajka!
Laika!
Are you stark raving mad?
It was Laika! I am sure of it! That spirited little dog saved me!
Laika saved you in her little space machine.
I believe the correct term is capsule, General.
Don't push your luck any further, Ivan Ivanovich. I fear it might snap.
Oh, my apologies, General. In my excitement to explain what I discovered on the far side of the Metagalacticus Interiores, I got carried away. And it happened like this.
A rocky moon. It's the center of the earth.
The source of all creation, General. A place where time flowed like rivers, and boulders of raw matter rained like comets upon the cratered rock.
Another miraculous escape from death. Another happy accident.
It was no accident, General. Laika took me there entirely deliberately. I'm sure of that.
Jaj.
She continues to be a husband and a savior and protector of our great nation.
Laika died in orbit.
No, General, she did not. She's very much alive and happy.
Ugyanaz, mint a víz alatt, csak kicsit gyorsabb.
Laika is dead, Ivan.
De amúgy
Certainly is not.
eskü jól néz ki.
This is the real world, Tovar.
Jó, a settingre nem volt panasz eddig se.
Center of the Earth, and Laika died in orbit.
In my world, General, Laika is still alive.
Igen, tudjuk, hogy életben van, a galaxis őrzője elárulta.
Very well.
Laika nem halt meg az
I will
űrbe.
live in your world for
Emberiség nem kínoz kutyákat.
is running out.
Ah, yes. Time, General. I was just coming to that. There in the distance.
Na jó, ez azért haladósabb, ez
Enveloped
az
in
most
a
egy
mighty
kicsit.
time storm. The world clock, General. The beating heart of all history. The axis mundi, the pillar of the world.
Not enough to conquer Russia by drilling back to the surface with his magical mind-controlling atomic radio set then.
No, General. You see, what if he could fuse little Orpheus directly with the world clock? Then his message would radiate with every tick and every tock.
Azért, hogy is mondjam, ezzel a kurva nagy hantázással, ami itt össze van hordva a játék, hogy stílusosan fejezzem ki magam, így elvesztette kaland jellegét. Egy pöppet. Illetve folyamatosan veszti.
Sonikiv!
Uncanny, General. But it was somehow different. I felt no cold. The waves.
Ó, szánt figyeltem, de mindegy, megállt az
It was
idő.
as if I had stepped free of those rivers of time and stood on entirely motionless ground. And there in the distance,
What?
Itt összegyűlik minden, amivel eddig találkoztunk. Jó, mondjuk mondta is.
And there, amongst it, the winking of steel led me to a blasting cap, and a plan began to form.
Most ilyen időtorzítós pálya lesz, hogy tudjuk ide-oda tologatni az időt?
The terrain was ferocious. Explosive eruptions of fire and heat. Thunderous emissions.
Köszönöm, hogy megint bevetted az X-et.
The terrain was ferocious. Explosive eruptions of fire and heat. Thunderous emissions and lethal gases.
Much like your cousin Pavel.
Most csapódik, figyeljetek. Bam!
Those stolen eggs.
Ah, General, you have been listening after all.
Látszik a pályám. Jó, ez most nem tudom mi volt. Oda is, bám. Ide is, bám. Ide is, bám. Ide is, bám. Néha megvárja, míg átérek. Bám. Az is. Mik lesznek a zavaró pályálemek? Rázós növény megint, vagy most szikla, éles sziklák?
Agartha again? But why?
You are stalling, comrade. The clock is ticking.
Tick-tock, tick-tock. Of course. In a flash of inspiration, I understood. Wrong, you see, General.
Elnézést.
Agree on.
We should never have gone to the center, because without little Orpheus, Toll could not...
Eskü, amikor megáll az idő, mint a kicsit gyorsabban
The
mozognak is
rocket wheel
karakterünk.
was his means to reach the world clock, but it was little Orpheus that enabled him. And the time itself, the world clock itself, was determined to make matters right.
With a little help from you, of course.
Merely a simple pawn in a game played upon a cosmic scale, General. But a pawn who understood that he was being given a second chance to grab a chunk of the explosive resin that wondrous city was built upon. And I was back. The mighty river of time roared past me, carrying the weight of the whole of history with it.
Even for you, this is a stretch. Our time is almost up. I have to submit my report within the hour.
Time, General. Time was nearly up indeed. That ancient and magical river that carried me along was surely moving inevitably towards some kind of end.
Mi a fasz? Miért nem ugrottál, bazd meg? Értem, hogy mozog alattam, de simán ugranod kellett volna. Miért nem ugrasz? Köszönöm.
Enough.
A zene is, hogy így 51-szerre ismétli önmagát, így azért...
I'm full of it. It is nearly midnight, and you have not given me the adequate explanation for the whereabouts of little
Érdekes,
Orpheus
most
and
már
the
azért annyira nem
bomb.
kalandos.
But, General, I am about to tell you what happened when I finally caught up with the villain Toll.
I do not care, Tavares. I simply do not care. You have worn me down, and it is time to call a halt to this. I bear no manners, comrade. In many ways, I admire you, but time is running out.
Yes, General, yes. Time. Because it was time itself that suddenly appeared to be on my side.
Time. Because it was time. Oké, akkor ugrunk.
Perhaps the world clock was so impressed with your egg-wearing antics, it decided to return you to Plutonia for a second attempt. I would strongly suggest you cut to the chase.
The chase, yes. The pursuit of Toll and little Orpheus. I stood there with the resin fragment in one hand and the blasting cap in the other, and then, just like that, a clock began to...
Hát én megpróbáltam átugrani, amúgy megmondom.
The world clock?
No, General, an alarm clock. My Slava alarm clock, in fact, given to me by unalmassá.
The one who married the beef investigator.
The very same. And the moment I saw that clock, I knew what I had to do.
Yes, I'm waiting.
A bomb, General. A bomb to destroy a bomb.
So,
A bomb, General. A bomb to destroy a bomb. Time, bomb.
It was a simple plan, really, General.
Ez a rész is kezd unalmas lenni.
simple plans.
Azt hiszem, erre illik az a mondás, hogy a kevesebb több lett volna.
It was the last time I was to see them.
Kamerázósok vannak a hegyeken, a sziklákon.
As they scurried in agitation around the base of the rocket drill, now a dreadful weapon of war in the hands of a madman, I was reminded of my mother.
Your mother looked like a nymph? That is extremely disrespectful, comrade.
No, I meant I was raised by my mother from an early age, of course. My childhood memories of my father were all too brief.
You are rambling, comrade Privalov. Time is running out. Dieni Rezinovi.
Lőtt fejbe.
Time will run out for us all, General, will it not? And it ran out for my father on the shores of Volga.
Your father fought at Stalingrad?
He did, General.
So did I.
Well, so you see, General. Perhaps we are just the same, you and I. Perhaps we are all just men.
Jó, hogy nyomtam az X-et, de mindegy. Folyamat nyomtam, de már nem akart ugrani, úgyhogy mindegy is.
What possible use in the
Megint a
construction
bálnában
could be
vagyunk.
found in the belly of a giant whale? Were you perhaps planning on using a worm as a fuse?
That would be ridiculous, General.
I would hate to undermine your otherwise entirely plausible account.
You forget, General. The belly of the beast was full of shipwrecks. And on one of them, I was bound to find what I was looking for. Fuse wire.
Comrade, yes, you'd forgotten all about the fuse until I reminded you, hadn't you?
General, your cynicism is unbecoming to a man of your rank and stature.
Ez a pálya arra jó, hogy egy kicsit változatosabban nyomkodjuk az analógot balra vagy jobbra. Itt már nem ugrunk, nem tudunk. Megvárjuk a quick time eventet, utána talán.
The clock was now ticking, General. Literally. I was surrounded by time, immersed in it, floating along a river of it on a raft made of history, seeking the next moment of opportunity to hurtle backwards amongst those lost worlds.
I am a patient man, Tavarish. I lost 3 toes in the winter outside Sharkovskaya in 42. A drunken dentist removed 2 frostbitten toes and 1 perfectly healthy one. You may therefore consider me a man blessed with an uncommon level of endurance for discomfort.
I hate visiting the dentist. My uncle Vanya was a dentist, and he was a deeply strange man, notwithstanding the love he felt for his pigs.
Miért nem volt alattam egy szikla?
The clock was now ticking, General. Literally. I was surrounded by time, immersed in it, floating along a river of it on a raft made of history, seeking
Miért nem tölti be onnan, hogy megérkezett a szikla?
amongst those lost worlds.
I am a patient man, Tavarish. I lost 3 toes in the winter outside Sharkovskaya in 42.
Nem értem.
The dentist removed 2 frostbitten toes and 1 perfectly healthy one. You may therefore consider me a man blessed with an uncommon level of endurance for discomfort.
I hate visiting the dentist. My uncle Vanya was a dentist.
Én most sikerült a tetejére ugrani.
Literally. I was surrounded.
Gondoltam, megvárom, hogy mozog az a nagy szikla, de úgy tűnik mindenféleképpen át kell ugorjak rá, mert ez a szar leszakad.
Seeking the next moment of opportunity to hurtle backwards amongst those lost worlds.
I am a patient man, Tavarish. I lost 3 toes in the winter outside Sharkovskaya in 42. A drunken dentist removed 2 frostbitten toes and 1 perfectly healthy one. You may therefore consider me a man blessed with an uncommon level of endurance for discomfort.
I hate visiting the dentist. My uncle Vanya was a dentist, and he was a deeply strange man, notwithstanding the love he felt for his pigs.
Is what?
He was a pig dentist,
Igen.
General. He always claimed that the human mouth presented an insufficient challenge.
Let me
Mert ha az kikerül a képből, akkor már nem tudok
will
ráérkezni,
tell you
értem.
what happened to little Orpheus. My patience is exhausted.
Mi a fasz?
I am done.
But we are nearly there, General.
Mi történt vele a levegőbe? Hát... De most legalább innen folytatjuk. De... Haver! Kezdesz kihozni a béketűrésemből a játék. Köszönöm! Hé, bazd meg, át tudtam ugrani egyik szikláról a másikra. Igen. Hova kéne? Oda. Ide. Most erre ugorjak föl? Igen. Köszönöm, hogy látok valamit. Aztán megérkeztünk. Igen. Merre volt az irány, geci? Oké. Hát gyerekek, lehet, hogy a 7. próbálkozásra majd véletlenül egy jó szikrára ugrunk rá. Megpróbálok a kicsire tovább ugrani, mert ez elsüllyed 2 pillanat alatt. Ha vagy nem. Most így, mintha megállt volna a szikla előtt a karakter, megint láthatatlan fal effektus, hogy nem tudom, mi történt. Köszönöm. 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 Jó, hát akkor nem ez lesz a kulcs. Tényleg tovább ugrunk. Azt hittem, a kisebb részre át kell ugrani először. De még ma jó. Egy kisebb kavicsot megpróbálunk átugrani, aztán fasz tudja, mi történik. Jó, ez megint mi a faszom volt, haver. Fölfele ugrott, de egy tök picit. Egyenesen. Úgy, köszönöm. Arra fele ugorsz. Köszönöm. Jó. Na, indulj meg! Kapd el! A kurva anyád, ez jó, hogy oda húzta magát a levegőbe. Újabb sétaszekvencia.
And so to the ocean floor, and that strange submerged city, and those poor lost vessels. To find a shell case to hold all of my scavenged ingredients, the last piece I need to
jó,
construct my
mindegy.
bomb.
Ah, yes, I have been waiting for this.
Csak Kraken.
I'm Ivan Ivanovic. Whilst
Esetleg most lehet, hogy látni fogjuk a fejét is, nem csak a szemét. A T-rexet megmutattátok így belassítva, illetve idő megállva. A kukacokat is megmutattátok. Esetleg lehet róla szó, hogy megnézzük a Krakent is. Már nem ugrunk akkor át?
Now I have your full attention.
Nem, már nem ugrunk olyan nagyon.
Explain to me how you made this bomb.
General?
Your bomb, comrade, that you so brilliantly constructed to destroy little Orpheus. Tell me how you made it.
Gecinek kincses láda.
Well,
In detail. The type of detail that should present no problem to a man who is actually capable of building a bomb, which I suspect would be an entirely different man to one who cheated on his entrance exams for the cosmonaut program.
Nyomassátok már a zenét, ne legyen ilyen gecőnalmas.
Uncharacteristically silent, comrade. Cat, got your tongue?
if I may, General, perhaps just a minute or two to gather my thoughts?
There are precious few minutes left.
Na, abban bízok, hogy a végén lesz valami epikus katarzis-szerű. Vagy játékmenet, vagy cinematic.
Yes, we have, General. I gazed up at the world clock and knew I had arrived at my destination. Whatever lay inside would see my journey end one way or another. But I had no idea of the marvels that awaited me. And it
Ivan Ivanovich! Tell me how you built the bomb.
Ivan Ivanovics.
was a wonderful sight. The world...
It is 2 minutes to midnight, Ivan.
Na jó, másodszor kerül
It
elő
is
a
time
fegyver.
to end this story.
Hát vagy annyira nem, mert mégiscsak hátra van még 2 rész.
Let us recap. 3 years ago, you were sent to the center of the Earth as part of a top-secret mission to ensure the delivery of little Orpheus, an atomic-powered capsule. You promptly vanished until you casually...
Nem mondod, hogy előről kezdtük.
Let us recap. 3 years ago,
Jó, akkor mégsem. Azt hittem pillanatra, hogy megint az első résznél vagyunk, meg hogy eltűnt a fegyver és újra előadja a sztorit, de akkor nem.
You promptly vanished until you casually wandered up to Molodiyozhnaya station 3 years later, claiming to have saved the world, but lost little Orpheus in the process. Is this correct?
Yes, General, it is, but...
You are charged with many crimes against the state, including desertion, lying to a superior officer, and sedition. Any one of these charges bears the punishment of execution by firing squad.
Benne a toronyban újra normálisat ugrunk.
General, you must be reasonable. I did my best. It's all true, I swear. I swear upon the lives of my family.
Oh, dude.
Fejezd be a mocskos hazugságaidat!
Uncle Vanya,
Semmi nem igaz ebből.
the pig dentist, or perhaps cousin Pavel.
Ezáltal kiábrándító is most már.
How stupid do you think I am?
Ahogy korábban is mondtam, fokozatosan veszti el kaland jellegét az cucc.
Suntayu, it is all true.
Maybe your toy maker, or was it watchmaker, Faza, who apparently taught you all he knew, despite being killed when you were less than 5 years old.
I was a fast learner?
You have precisely 1 minute to convince me not to summon the guards, and have you shot on the spot.
A minute? A lifetime. It's all I need, General.
Ez az intro, ez amúgy pofás, ezt tetszik, ezt nem tudom megunni. Pillar of the world.
I was astounded. My father, I told you, I think I told you, he was a toy maker, and he often played with clockwork parts. But this made all those childhood wonders pale into insignificance. And it was fortunate indeed that my uncle...
Vanya, it's a big dentist?
No, my other uncle, Sasha, had taken me mountaineering in the Urals during my childhood, for it was only by scaling these giant mechanical parts that I would reach little Orpheus.
Yes, I had been thinking that it seems awfully convenient that you were such an accomplished climber. I don't, however, recall any mention of this Uncle Sasha in your file.
He was a very private man.
A very unlikely man.
That was Uncle Sasha's
Jó
blessing.
magas torony. Hát még egy kalandjuk. Rém izgalmas.
Those great wheels and cogs clashed and boomed. The vast hands of all time crunching forever and ever around.
Ivan Ivanovich.
Pendulums and springs and great big wheels and tiny little wheels.
Tavarish Privalov, stop.
Though at least the Mienk were not here, especially as they seemed to infest the world below the surface. Mienk everywhere. Mienk. Many Mienk for plenty. Mienk.
You are babbling. Comrade, enough.
Igen, ennyi. Följebb, haver. Ne állj meg. Jó, ezt nem láttam jönni. Köszönöm, hogy megint ugrottál, haver. Kezd elmenni a bizalmam. Akkor így nem veszi be az X-et. És mondjátok, hogy nem direkt van, hogy csak a játék vége felé kezdi el ilyen sűrűn produkálni ezt a tünetet. Megvárjuk, míg elmegy meg, nem kockáztatom.
face, perhaps, with his radios and his crystals. Now, if I could just reach him, I could use the bomb.
There is no bomb. You have no idea how to make a bomb. You have no idea about how to do anything one might actually expect of a cosmonaut.
The bomb?
Ivan Ivanovich!
General?
Time is up. Stop talking, Tavarish. You don't know what happens next. It is obvious. You've done very well. I applaud you for your efforts and your story. It is a wonderful tale, Comrade Privalov. I have enjoyed it immensely. But every story needs an ending. And it is clear yours does not have one.
I just need more time.
I think that even if I gave you all the time in the world, it would not be enough.
No, General. I can do this. That is, I remember what happens next. I just need to catch my breath and compose myself.
We both know how this story ends, comrade.
Rém izgalmas, hogy azok ott agonizálnak, én meg itt mászkálok a köteleken.
You haven't heard what happened.
We will find out soon enough. You will be executed, and another expedition will be sent.
No, you cannot. You cannot. We must never go back. You don't understand.
Make me, then. Make me understand. I am a kind man, although you may not believe this. I do not want to have you shot. So help me. Make me understand. Tell me what happened to little Orpheus.
Ez szép volt.
Ivan Ivanovich?
It was... it was... No. I'm sorry, General. I'm sorry, I have no idea. You are right. I simply cannot think what happened next. It's just... a blank, General. There's nothing there. I am very tired, you see.
Comrade Privalov. Ivan.
You're right. It's over, General.
Nincs vége, van még egy fejezet.
Just to write to my mother for me.
Of course I will.
You are a kind man, as you have said. And, General,
Yes, Ivan.
was it a good story?
Oh, yes. It was an excellent story.
Thank you, General. I'm just sorry I couldn't give you an ending.
Unless...
General?
Quiet, Tovarish. I am thinking. Unless... I seem to remember that there were many problems with little Orpheus during production.
General?
Problems with the casing around the atomic battery. Concerns.
Concerns, General?
Yes, concerns. Unlikely though that might be. Yeah, it seems if I remember that it failed to secure properly. A sharp blow could spring the hatch and expose the fragile casing of the bomb to any would-be vandal.
I'm not sure I follow you.
A resourceful yet forgetful hero might, one would think, take advantage of that fact.
But how, General? Where would I find something to strike it with?
The son of a watchmaker would easily find something within a giant clock mechanism that resembled a hammer, surely.
A hammer? Why, yes, General. I do remember now. I grasped the hammer-shaped thingamabob.
Let's just agree it was a hammer, Ivan.
Yes, of course. Let's do that. I recovered my senses, shook my head, and looked about me. In my distracted stupor, I had climbed further up the tower than I ever thought possible. In front of me was the clock face, and I gazed out through it at the sheer expanse of history. And I knew whatever happened next... happened next?
The hand of destiny had fallen upon your shoulder.
Yes, it had. And what an extraordinary hand it was.
Ráadásul, hogy megvárja, hogy átugorjak a következőre, mire szétlövi. Amúgy. Már megijedtem, kicsit elszóltam magam, de nem. Hop, hop, hop. Hey. Eddig tartott. Mi lenne, ha nem akadnál meg benne, nem simán átugranád, haver? Újra megyünk amúgy, vagy mi van? Igen? Mi a fal? Mit kellett volna csinálnom? És ez az előbb miért nem ment? Ugyanígy ugrottam.
And so, Toll was defeated. Little Orpheus destroyed, the bomb lost forever.
Not just that, General. In that moment, time sprung back to its proper shape, and I found myself once more in Plutonia, as the start of my journey. But the wound in the interior sky was gone. The drill was gone. It was as if I had never been here. And they were nymph, free and happy, without the tyranny of toll, free to pursue their simple lives.
But we can never go back?
Never, General. One drill, one metal sphere, one lone cosmonaut was nearly enough to destroy time and unleash the tyrant toll upon our world. Who would think an innocuous beeping radio housed in a ball of metal could change the world so dramatically?
Who indeed? But tell me, what of you? And what of your return to the surface?
I stayed amongst the Nymph for as long as I could. But I came to realize they had begun to worship me as a king. No, General. I am a good socialist and could not allow this workers' paradise to become corrupted. And so I left that wonderful land for the last time.
And then?
And then I walked. For 2 years I wandered, always looking for a way home, through lands and worlds almost beyond imagination.
És mi az utolsó pálya akkor? Ami bónusz?
Into sunlight and realized I was home.
Until one day I emerged, just like that? You just found your way back to the surface?
Well, General, it was a little more complicated than that. There were great obstacles to overcome and terrible challenges to face and incredible lands to explore.
Enough. Little Orpheus is lost forever. The interior is sealed. You have returned with a story of socialism, triumphing over incredible odds. It is, as I said, enough for one night. Enough for my report, at least.
General, if I may...
Comrade Ivan Ivanovich Privalov, you are found guilty of all charges brought against you and sentenced to execution by firing squad. However, having listened to your story, I believe you are quite mad. In other words, I find your madness guilty, not you. And we cannot execute madness. And indeed, there are lessons to be learned, even in the depths of this madness. Perhaps the Americans were right to send the chimp after all.
So, General?
Get out of my sight, Ivan. Go home. Enjoy a state pension as a madman. Just make sure I never see you again.
Yes, General. Of course, General. Anything you say. I shall be small and quiet and live a life without excitement and...
Out! Until one day I just emerged. Very good, Tavarish. Very good indeed.
Most akkor fixen vége van? Ez finálé volt? Jó, ahogy az ezredes befejezte a sztorit, az mondjuk egy picit, egy nagyon hangyányit szívmelengető volt, de hát nem mondanám olyan kurva nagy epikus finálénak amúgy. Egy pici, egy csöppet másfajta játékmenetet betehettek volna. Úgy értem, mennyit játszottam? Most vagyunk másfél órán, az előző volt 1.45. Az 3 óra 15 perc körül van az egész. De nem tudom, valahogy 6 órának tűnik, gyerekek. Értitek, hogy nem tudom, ezért mondtam, kevesebb több lett volna. Azért túl monoton. Túl monoton volt, egy idő után már azért a sok ugrabugrálás az. És akkor elvileg van még egy pályánk. Bónusz epizód.
Who's the best space dog? Oh, где моя хорошенькая моя. Ты просто космическая.
Most akkor mégiscsak...
Hey, who's the best hairy cosmonaut? It is indeed a lovely sunset. And it reminds me of the skies of Peru.
Tehát ez azért van, hogy
I never told
azt higgyük, hogy végig igazat mondott? Azért jött ide Lajka kutya? De ellenben akkor miért fekete-fehérbe mutatják?
Well, it might have been simple for you to cross it, but you were in a space capsule. I had to rely on my own 2 feet, my noshki. Feet which I might add,
Az ilyen leseszemű
had
fog
just
meg jól
crossed
amúgy.
the interior, beaten the villain Toll, and helped inspire the Yank to a workers' revolution. Oh, that's all very easy for you to say, but your idea of civilized behavior is licking your own bottom in public. No. My adventures above the clouds were filled with untold dangers, death-defying escapes, and some really quite extraordinarily large Bielorybitsa. And it happened like this.
Na nézzük.
Weeks had passed since I left Plutonia, and one evening, exhausted, I simply fell asleep at the foot of a strange windmill. And when I awoke, well, that thought didn't cross my mind. I was exhausted after all.
Jó, az a felhő setting
This is
amúgy.
besides the point, my nosy Kate.
Kicsit olyan chilles hatása
What
van.
matters is this. When I awoke, the windmill and the ground around it had been carried high into the air. What magic was this? Что за магия? As unlikely, perhaps, as a suitcase-sized dog orbiting the center of the Earth for many years. Quite. Quick as a flash, Kakmonia, my training leapt into play, and I began to paddle the strange contraption through the clouds in search of answers. It is entirely possible that a miller who owns a windmill capable of levitating high into the air may also own a flying machine. Oh, now you're just being silly. May I continue my recounting of how I sailed over the sky gardens towards the mystical city of Peru? Oh, I must, my moju satidrug. I must.
Miért van benne ennyi fogaskerék, ha evezővel hajtom? Csak kérdem. Mert egy ősrégi szar, oké.
What powerful emanations! What mighty gusts! What an epic squall! They reminded me of Cousin Pavel, yes! But whereas his rearward zephyrs could curdle milk and tarnish the teaspoons, these magical wafts only serve to carry me aloft and onwards.
Tehát amikor azt mondta az ezredes, hogy menjünk, azt őrültködjünk magunknak otthon, akkor ezt értette alatta. Történik amúgy bármi? Mert minthogyha föntről lefele jönne az a szellő, ami fönt tartott az előbb. Ezt meg tudom fordítani, hogy fölfele menjen talán? Ja jó, hogy abba kell hagynom ott, ahol a jelölés van, oké. Köhönjük. És akkor így fölfele fúj. Ja.
Something was afoot in the gardens of Peru. Big muck staining the surfaces and making my nose curl. Yes, it was positively Pavelian in scent. But it did not belong here. I think I once told you of Auntie Masha's passionate encounter in a cable car with the manganese entrepreneur from Chiatura. Now, Auntie Masha told me that there was a disagreeable stain and smell all around those factories and smelting works. Our industry is not without its dangers. Could it be that the once bucolic gardens of Peru were being corrupted by unchecked pollution?
After all, science is a double-edged sword, my bristly confidant. Consider...
Na, de elnézést, hogy kevesebbet beszélek, de most már ugye annyira
Of course, of course. I apologize. Proшу прощения.
nem lelkesít a
Two-headed
dolog.
dogs is perhaps a rather insensitive analogy, but not without justification.
Rögnék, hogyha a bónusz pálya hosszabb lenne, mint bármelyik másik, vagy az összes
But I
együtt.
could not believe that I would find such pollution here. But this was nothing to the true horror of what was shortly to unfold.
Bár ha még sok ilyen lesz benne, akkor hosszabb lesz. Ez meg olyan, mint a Jack és az óriás passzúj. Tudjátok, amikor fölmegy a babon, és ilyen óriások világába találja magát. Fölmegyünk, mert abból mi baj lehet. Hát semmi. Lefele kell haladni. Ez megint ugyanaz, mint ami eddig volt a játékban, csak lassabb. Az mi az a ninja?
That terrible strashnaya machina, spewing its poison into the air, had created monsters. A being, a malignant spoiler of the noble and pure, and it had taken on the form of its prey. Well, of course. No, конечно, I was the prey. The citizens of Peru had clearly long since fled the evilly sentient smog, but I inadvertently wandered into its lair. Oh, I know. Misfortune seemed to dog... Oh, sorry, I do apologize. To follow my every footstep. But no time to ponder, no time to bemoan the hand that fate had dealt me. No, all that was on my mind was escape, конечно.
Az a fekete amúgy az ő volt, csak nem tudom, a gonoszabbik énje, vagy a benne lakozó sötétség.
Yes, it was most interesting. The windmill seemed to be from an earlier age. Perhaps this was a devastating warning of the destructive power of unfettered industrialization. I most certainly had not forgotten about the windmill.
Hát nem tudom mennyivel jobb,
Did
hogy
not get carried away. You are missing the
most egy kutya ugat
only a small dog.
az ezredes helyett.
Oh, a brilliant, brave, spacefaring dog, of
Az
course.
legalább volt egy kis változatosság a beszélgetésükben.
If you perhaps listened more and interrupted less, I am just getting to the explanation of the windmills. My stinking nemesis was back. But more interesting was the change in the city.
Jó. Akkor mit csináljak vele?
My stinking nemesis was back. But more interesting was the change in the city. The windmills were fading out, clearly obsoleted, mothballed, relics. Instead, a sense of an obsession with power was apparent. Vast engines, terrible machines, ever hungry and reliant on the rapid consumption of fuel, the production of toxic fumes and choking gases. Pride, my pushisti compadre, pride, ambitia, ambition, The dark side of science. Zemechov's had too many. Don't be ridiculous, dog.
Tudomány sötét
Burak was
oldal.
the intellectual capacity of a ringworm would think windmills are in any way harmful.
Amúgy jól álljátok, a lelkesedésem az egy kicsit már elszállt. Bocsánat, olyan alakja volt, mint eddig bárminek, amit húzogatni lehet, úgyhogy valahogy egyértelmű volt. Köszönöm, hogy ugrottál megint, haver. Ja, hát akkor menjünk át, toljuk ki. Na, toljad. Ja, hogy nem lehet ennél tovább tolni. Az zseniális. Az a max. Jó. Akkor ezt tud ugrani? Nem tud. Oké, megint nem ugrottál. Köszönöm! Zseniális volt. Na. Abba hagyja, felé fordul, megvárjuk, míg oda jön, igen. Nyomjad már neki!
Of course, you never had much of a chance to travel. Sarcasm doesn't suit you. You don't have the tail for it. You do, at least, have a tail. Mind you, family gossip maintains that so did Uncle Rablien. Although it was apparently little more than a stub, and a source of considerable discomfort and social anxiety for him. The question of whether or not Uncle Rabliem wagged his stub is very much off topic. What I am trying to say is that your upbringing on the streets of Moscow meant you never saw the blackened fields of Magnitogorsk. The sacrifices made by the valiant citizens of that industrial heartland, as they drowned in their own blight, even as they powered the state forwards. I was reminded of Magnitogorsk as I wandered through those fields of pipes and foundries, and I wept for the loss of innocence that so often goes hand in hand with progress.
Az a földre érkezés előtt még egy másodpercre megáll a levegőben, az zseniális. Kicsit, mintha fújna a szél. Följöttünk addig, hogy minden smogos, amúgy tök jó. És megint lassít a játék. Hála Istennek most ő is ilyen lassan mozog. Nagyon jó, kurva izgalmas.
Indeed! I just evaded the slimy, oily grasp of that man-made vaginoid, his petroleum stink clogging my nostrils and making my head thump. And I felt a great stirring within me. Yes, much like I assume Cousin Pavel. May he never get loose again. But no,
Kimegyek ücsére, amíg ezek
this
dumálnak.
was no volcanic upbubbling of gastric malintent. No, it was the roaring fires of justice once more ignited within me. I felt a swell of patriotic fervor and knew the hand of destiny had fallen on me once more. Yes, what a hand it was! I could not see this great wonder sink into an abyss of poison and bile. The Perunians may have been forced to abandon their city. I had saved the world once before and was ready to answer the call again.
Na. Helyre jött a lábunk, na örülök neki. Jó, hogy ott is repülünk, ahol nincsen felhajtóerő.
What strange metal Bielaribitsa clearly designed to swim through the air. I was amazed. And there was more. Beneath the fins, I spotted the apertures of hoses and was reminded of the time Auntie Agrafina devised a contraption to water all of her copious algae beds simultaneously with one flush of the toilet by a system of pipes and valves that ran throughout her house. Можно так сказать, in a manner of speaking, yes. Her algae were most irrigated, although her neighbor Victor was washing his trousers in the sink at the time and was bruised quite severely about the face and body. But these were no ordinary flying metal fish. They were designed to expel air, fresh air, and push back the polluted clouds. There is, of course, a fine tradition of looking to nature to solve problems of a scientific or military persuasion.
Tologatós, azt hiszem.
Yes, as you well know.
Ja nem, az csak
My
design, jó.
nephew Sergei. Yes, the very same.
Már nyomtam a négyzetet, hogy forgassam a csapot.
Oh, well, Sergei was stationed recently at Kazacha Bukh, where dolphins were being trained as brilliant aquatic agents of
Azért nyomtam meg amúgy a kart, mert ott volt, tehát nem véletlenül teszik oda. A nagy megfejtés nem volt mögötte.
That can shoot jets of water from beneath the surface to knock its prey off little tiny twigs and into its mouth. If you were to tell the average mushroom sheriff that a dog would orbit the earth, I suspect you would receive a similarly...
Visszaállítódik magától?
That is because you are a small, hairy hound.
Nem, akkor az előbb meg miért kapcsoltak ki? Néhány cuccnál néha kikapcsolja.
The product of many months of training, And I realized the answer to pollution was here all along. The Peronians, tragically, had simply never had time to finish their fleet. If only I could find a working flying fish. If only. If only. Yes, if only.
Ebben mintha lenne egy kis környezetvédelmi áthallás, amúgy. Érdekes, hogy most megállt előtte automatikus, hogy én nem megyek tovább. Amikor belefutottam, akkor miért nem?
So, don't get ideas above your station. We humans, on the other hand, may produce up to 16 million perfectly unshelled peas in an average shift. But we are martyrs to our sinuses. But to clear them, aha! These are remedies we Russians have been perfecting over the long centuries of harsh winters. Onions. A quick snifter of onion oil will clear your head faster than a Pragviev can clear a hypothetical minefield. Yes, if I could find a functional fish, I would become that onion.
Köszönöm, hogy ugrottál. És már úgy érzem, lassan meg kell köszöngessem, ha hajlandó ugrani. Azt hittem feladvány lesz, de nem. Először fordult volna elő a játékból, hogy valamit a jó sorrendbe kell bekapcsolni. Sikerült véletlenül azonnal megcsinálni. Köszönöm.
Yes, the working fish, the ribka. I could feel I was at the heart of Perun, and my noxious pursuer had renewed its chase with a terrible vigor.
Gyerünk. Nem a csávónak mondom, a játéknak, hogy valami történhetne már végre. Hirtelen megint rendbe jött a lábunk. Mindig csak ennél sérül le. Akkor jön ez az olajpacs meg csávó.
Her onion cannons primed for a great aerial conflict unseen in the annals of human endeavor. And you are just jealous it was a bigger flying machine than yours. No, Peleus Pau. It was time for science to fight back. Yes, my hairy compatriot. Actually, onwards to victory!